Let's go!
And welcome to this edition of Fish Stripes Live, presented by Love Pop. That's LAPOP. And we are back. This feels like the true first Fish Stripes Live of this season, as we have everybody on deck for this series versus the Twins. Let me go around the table with myself, Daniel, host. We have Kevin, Eli, Alex, Lewis in the press box. We have Isaac, Noah, John Turlington with videos from TikTok, and our special guest joining us, Mr. Angel Espino. Angel, it is great to have you here today for this stream.
Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Same here. The first thing to go off, the Marlins did fall to the Mets 3-1. Was not pretty at all for the Marlins. Some really shaky pitching performances from Eddie, Trevor Rogers, and even Sandy a little bit in that first opening day game against the Mets. But there really was one, if you had to say one shining spot, it is the newest Marlins, Luis Arias. Let's start with Kevin. Kevin looks like he's eagering to chomp at the bits to talk about this series. Give me your overall experience, overview, reactions versus the Mets, Mr. Kevin, since you were there covering 2 games.
No, I wouldn't say I'm eagered, but yeah, I mean, it was a pretty tough series to watch, almost most of it. I mean, when you look at the first game, Marlins had the lead, Tanner Scott blew it, not much more to say there. Offense, I mean, when you look at the score, the box score from each game, you'll see that the Marlins got on base, got hits, they got it going, but you see the lack of runs there, and that's just because they just couldn't drive them in. And that was probably the biggest issue this series. Now, when you look at the game again, the second game where Luzardo pitched, he was good. David Peterson, who all took the loss, he had a very nice outing. Miami got 10 hits, only 2 runs. That's a little bit disappointing, but if you win, that'll be a win. And AJ Puck got his first save as a Marlin. Going into the third game, Tyler McGill just looked pretty damn good against the Marlins. After Nick Fortes's early homer, just offense was silent after that. Couldn't drive in a run. Final game, 5-1 says it all. Not much more to say. Trevor really did struggle in that start, and Kodai Senga just showed why the Mets paid what they paid to get this guy here to the big leagues. And I mean, as your number 4 starter, I believe, Kodai Senga, that's pretty impressive. And what he did was really good against a Marlins team that almost out-hit the Mets as well.
Yeah, only 3 hits against Senga as a team, and 2 of them were from Arias, of course.
Yep.
With the series, it was especially that Saturday game that was the frustrating one, where they actually Arias, that was the 4-hit game from him. Fortes hit the home run, and that was the only run production they got was from that Fortes home run. The fact that they just got so little from everybody else with so much swing and miss, which was not supposed to be an issue for the team this year, to see it, especially from Yuli Gurriel. That's like his specialty. The one reason why, well, actually, he was on Sunday. That was Yuli struggles on Sunday. But as a whole, just the strikeouts were surprisingly high considering the skill set that this team has and the way that this is supposed to look like when they're actually performing the way they're expected to. I mean, all things considered, it's a good opponent. And every game was relatively close early on. before the Mets pulled away late in their wins. It was a competitive series. It didn't look like wholly lopsided one way or the other. And what stands out has been touched upon a lot is with all the starting pitchers just having trouble getting into favorable counts, and in most cases just putting way too many free runners on base with walks and hit by pitches. Like that's something you simply can't have. The one thing that wasn't so bad was the defense. Like there were a couple key moments. The Jazz one most recently that sticks out, but all things considered, I felt like their defense didn't really lose them this series in this case. It was more so that the Mets were just really good on that front with a few exceptions. So that's something to keep in mind when we're assessing this team. Is it's not always going to be the difference between wins and losses. From the Marlins perspective, it's just that on the other end, when you're going against a team that has standout defenders that work well with one another, like you're not going to score as much as you thought you would just because of the quality of your opponent's fielding. So that contrast is going to be, I think, a theme throughout a lot of the Marlins season.
Let me stop you right there, Eli. News came in from Christina De Nicola. Lineup change. John Wendell. Joey Wendell will not be playing. It looks like it's an oblique soreness for Wendell. John Birdie is playing shortstop and will be batting ninth today. So, any reaction?
Wow.
Angel, let's get your reaction to that. No Joey Wendell, John Birdie now in his place.
It's sad because you don't want to see a player get injured this early in the season. But I'll tell you what, I've been pulling for John Birdie for a long time. He's one of my favorite players on the team. And I always said these things kind of work themselves out. I thought that he should have been the starting shortstop over Wendell. And look what happened, I hope that, Wendell's okay. But, man, Birdie, what he did last year with the stolen base and, the hustle that guy has, he deserves to play every day. He doesn't, he shouldn't be a utility guy. So take advantage. I mean, if I'm John Birdie, I'm looking right now to take advantage and just go crazy on the base pads. And bigger bases this year. So that should be good for him.
Yeah. Isaac, you're there at the game, press box. Obviously, we had Christina just report that. Did you see anything from Joey Wendell that might be of concern that you saw there leading up to this?
You're muted.
Sorry about that. I think Eli muted me. When he was taking BP in his last swing, he felt something instantly. He went over to Brent Brown, and he walked into the tunnel instantly, and he slammed his bat walking into the clubhouse. So he was not happy. It seemed it could be more serious. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 10, 15-day IL stint for him. So you get what you wish for. You get John Birdie to play a little bit more. But yeah, Joey Wendell, it's an oblique, and those are always tricky. So you got to be worried about him at least a little bit.
Yeah. I don't want to say anything long term, but if he does go on the IL, are there any names that the Marlins should look at to bring up, even if it's a short stint, 10, 15
Iglesias.
No,
Iglesias.
I think Birdie will get a lot of the playing time. I think they really like him. I think he's the perfect guy to have. Like we mentioned in the last stream, they haven't had a lot of stolen base opportunities, and Birdie does get on base. And when he does get on base, he's gonna steal that base.
Yeah, he's a burner.
So I think, and when it comes to a roster spot that they would have to replace Wendell with, Xavier Edwards, Jose Iglesias, maybe. I think they want to give Jacob Amaya at least 2 months in AAA, even though I'm in love with the guy. But those would be the names. Those would be the names I'd look out for.
Charles LeBlanc had a 2-home-run game in AAA. Just letting you know.
He doesn't play shortstop. Doesn't play shortstop. So.
But he's a sleeper. He has a good bat.
I do like his bat. I do like Charles LeBlanc's bat very much.
If Segura doesn't hit the the tab for us this year at third, I think Charles LeBlanc will be a nice plug in there. So,
man, has he been bad at the plate? Like I know it's one series, but man, he has been.
Yeah,
he'll be fine. Will be fine. He's played a lot of third base. He looked great. This obviously the whole season played third base, has looked great defensively, and he's going to be fine offensively as well.
All right.
We'll see.
Let me ask everyone in here. I was going to get to this, but Alex already mentioned someone that he was disappointed with in Segura. For everyone in here, who had disappointed you the most so far to the start of this season? There are plenty of names you can go with: Segura, Avi, Edward Cabrera. Are there any names at all that maybe you look at and are disappointed with, even when 4 games into the season?
I think the first one I would go with is the guy who's just got scratched from the lineup. Joey Wendell did not look good whatsoever offensively. Had a really bad spring training and followed it up with a really bad opening series against the Mets. I don't even know if he got a hit in the whole series, but
No,
defensively he looked. No, he didn't. He looked all right defensively. He looked like he could hold it down at shortstop, but that is not some. I mean, if it's very concerning that Wendell has not even gotten a single hit because this guy's known for his contact on base. This is a pretty good player overall. We saw what he did with Tampa 2 years ago. We saw what he did last year at the start of the season until got derailed by injuries. I mean, it's very. He's been disappointing so far, and obviously all the other names Danny mentioned there with Trev, Edward, and everyone else.
Yeah, I'd say Wendell because the Marlins themselves, if you ask them, they'd probably say Wendell as well. They put together this team thinking that he could handle the primary shortstop on both sides of the ball, and like the very early indications are maybe they were overestimating him in that regard. You got to feel for him a little bit with this injury. It's a contract year for him as well, and getting to test free agency for the first time, unless he's extended beforehand. That was my bold prediction, and it's not looking particularly good at this juncture, given this news. But he was off to that pretty shaky start. Based on what we have right now, it seems that this was just a immediate injury that happened today, and that it doesn't really excuse or explain why he was struggling out of the gate or in spring training. But who knows? I mean, he's usually a very forthcoming guy, and I think we'll get a better understanding once we get to speak to him next about exactly how this came out and how quickly he's going to try to get back into action.
Yeah, Wendell for me and Avio Garcia. These two. Garcia has been what 0 for 9 so far. I mean,
He hasn't gotten a hit. I know that.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten a hit yet. At some point, how much do you go with the guy? I know they went 4 years with Brinson, who did nothing for 4 years. So, I know they spent a lot more on Garcia, but but so far since last year to this year, he's not really shown much. What do you guys think about Garcia?
Well, I'm not disappointed in him because I entered this year thinking the worst, thinking it was going to be more of the same that we saw in 2022, honestly. And that's another guy where you just look at the underlying performance in spring training, and he's having so much trouble making contact with the ball in all these matchups, even though he's in much better shape than he was at this time a year ago in terms of the stuff that actually mattered. How much does that really matter in terms of how he's going to perform as a hitter? Unless he gets better at recognizing pitches and pitch types, then he's going to continue swinging and missing, and he's going to continue to. There's just not really a path forward unless he rediscovers who he used to be. So people have hung their hats on his track record that it's 1 year bad, 1 year good, and an odd number year for Avi is usually a very successful one. That doesn't continue. That's not necessarily the rule for somebody's entire career. There comes a point where they just decline, where the league figures them out, and there's no counter adjustment that works out. We had reporting from Craig Mish just a couple of days ago that he believes it's about a 2-month grace period. Once we get through April and May, if he's still performing as badly as he did at this time last year, then they at least cut his role pretty significantly in terms of actually getting rid of him. It might be longer leash than that, just considering how much money he's owed.
I mean, when you think about it, this is just taking away at bats from other players who need development, like Brian De La Cruz and Jesus Sanchez. When you have somebody like that who's not giving you anything, and you have two guys who are really like on the hot seat because they don't want to be sent back to AAA, like De La Cruz and Sanchez, and robbing them of at bats is robbing them of finding their rhythm and get going. So. That's why it's good to hear they're already rumblings that they might lower his importance on the team if he's not hitting, because you're just robbing other people of developing. That's all you're doing at this point.
Another guy you didn't mention, but in the same vein as what you're saying is Burdick.
Yeah.
Is another guy that should be getting his opportunity.
Yeah.
I know one of them was against a position player, as Eli kindly pointed out to me, even though I already knew that, but I tweeted it and didn't say it. Anyways, had a 2 home run game the other day. Actually, yesterday, sorry. Had some of the best swings in spring training, as we all saw.
Mm-hmm.
That guy deserves his opportunity. And like you said, you have a guy like Garcia, obviously getting paid, right? But
Yeah.
there's your blocker. So
that makes the whole thing about Jazz moving to center even more idiotic. He's a natural shortstop.
He's
If
not
you're
even
gonna
a
get
good.
rid of McGill,
He's not good at. He's not good at shortstop. He is not a good
well,
shortstop.
okay, well, you
yeah,
can
he's
put him
second
at second base where he was, just leave him there
Yeah.
and
Well,
find
the
a
problem
Reyes
is
at short. I mean,
have
they
Cooper.
they could have done other kinds of moves. They had the depth in the outfield to be able to cover the outfield. So I mean, I just don't understand that. There's a couple questionable signings that happened this season.
They
That
have the
you know,
depth, but they don't have the players to play center field, and that's where the issue lies. Brian De La Cruz, he could hold it down maybe, but he's not good enough to play it. I mean, none of them are good enough to play it. Jazz is the only one
so
where
you
you can
put
maybe
Jazz
give
has
him
never played center field.
No. But they have guys playing positions that they shouldn't be playing all across the diamond.
Correct.
That's
Yep.
yeah.
You have a
Even though
second
Arias
baseman
has been-
playing third base. You have a second baseman playing center field. You have a first baseman DH playing second base.
Exactly.
You have second baseman third baseman playing shortstop, and on and on and on.
It's like patchwork, like Lewis just said.
Yeah.
Like, you got to move these guys around. Yeah, sure. I mean, this Jazz thing, and I told you guys the other day, and I know it's only been one series. I have very little confidence that he will work out as a full-time center fielder. So
I don't think he will. They see him as like Ketel Marte, where he's athletic enough that he can presumably do both because he's agile and he's young. But even Ketel Marte did it, and everyone marveled at it. He was a bad defensive center fielder too. And at the end of the day, they kind of just settled like, hey, you're a middle infielder. I think your offensive production is going to play better there. And I personally think that Jazz probably long-term winds up in the infield, and that center field is just, as we've all said, they didn't acquire the Brian Reynolds that they wanted to get, who himself's not a center fielder, but so they kind of just did this to kind of augment the Arise trade. And obviously,
how about Jazz at third? What do you guys think? Jazz.
I think you guys
the arm strength doesn't translate to that.
It's
what Kevin's been saying internally with us is that Segura's arm isn't strong, though he's been rangy enough to kind of make third base work.
Mm-hmm.
You don't kind of like, you look at StatCast metrics and you say like, yeah, he's not a third baseman because he doesn't have the arm to play third base and make those throws from across the diamond.
What I will say with Segura is that when he does get when the ball reaches Garrett Cooper, it's either way too high or on the sides, way too wide, and that's what I've.
Okay, Kevin.
No, be honest, Isaac. You've seen it yourself. Daniel,
he has looked great in the regular season. He's looked great at third base, and Arise is looking even better at second base.
He's not good at third base. I will say that right now, and I'm not going to.
This is his 30th career game playing third base. He's athletic enough to do it. He looks good there, and he's going to be playing third base all 162 games that he's in the lineup. He's fine there.
Isaac, while we have you, Isaac, the one important thing that we want to get from you being there is Pablo Lopez and being able to see him back in the building that he pitched in for 5 seasons. I know that you were there. So what did he have to say pregame about coming back as a member of the Twins? We know he's going to face the Marlins in just a couple of days.
Yes, I just finished the blurb, actually. That's going to go at the end of today's recap. The amount of local media that was there, just so anxious to speak to him again. He even recognized me. He was like, "How's it going, kid?" Maybe not by name, but he was happy to see me for some reason. And he was just so happy to see everyone. And, he mentioned a lot. He mentioned Arise, saying how well he hit it off with him on Team Venezuela, asking him about Minnesota, asking him vice versa, asking him about Miami. He was saying how excited he was to speak to the media members, the players, the coaching staff. And you can see the biggest smile on his face when he came out of that clubhouse. I tweeted it out. It's just one of the best human beings in baseball, really. And he's ecstatic. And when I think it was Noah that asked him who he's looking forward to facing the most, he right away said Stallings. He caught me the most. I don't think he's going to face Stallings, unfortunately. It looks like Fortes would probably catch that Wednesday afternoon game. But he did mention Stallings as the guy. And he did say Fortes after Stallings because he caught him that one time. But it was a great reunion when Pablo Lopez came out there. He gave every media member their own personal one-on-one if they wanted to.
He's a classy dude.
He's a very
He's a very-
classy dude.
Yeah,
And
very classy
I
guy.
think he's going to
Yeah.
shove it up the Marlins' ass on Wednesday.
I think your prediction is pretty safe there and accurate.
Yeah, he is. And even Stallings was pretty cool when we told Stallings that Pablo was looking forward to facing him the most. He was like, yeah, probably because I'm the easiest guy to get out. And I'm like, no, like, you're not wrong. We didn't have to say it. Stallings is a very good guy as well. So we should all chill out on our,
Speaking of that, how long do you guys think it's going to take for Fortes to get that number one spot on the catching?
I would say he kind of has it already. He's been the main
Right.
catcher. The only pitcher he's really the only pitcher Stallings is catching right now is really just Forte. I mean, it's Sandy.
Alcantara,
And I
right?
guess now
Sandy?
Sandy, and I guess now it's Johnny Cueto as well. So
Yeah.
Those are
As far as Pablo Lopez, man, I missed the heck out of him already. And I hope Arias keeps this going because he's a good-looking ball player. So at the end of the day, it could be an even swap, and it could be a very good trade for both teams, which is the best outcome. So
yeah, this is and just in the sense that it looks like a win-win trade. It reminds me of the Arizona trade, Jazz and Gallen. Both players have worked out well for their respective teams. And I think this is going to work out really well. And especially if Miami is able to somehow, I know that's not a conversation for right now, but maybe this offseason extend Luis Arias. It really looks like a win for Miami.
Yeah. Before going ahead and talking about maybe some of the Twins, maybe their players and the hot start they've gotten on to, I wanted to go back to the Mets series and talk about one player in particular, Edward Cabrera, who did not have the best start versus the Mets. 6 walks, not strikeouts or even innings pitched. 6 walks against the Mets in what was not one of his best starts as a major leaguer. Eli, what did you see from Eddie there? Is that anything at all to be worried about, or that just maybe first start that's just to get out there?
It was a lot of familiar things that we saw from him last year. The one thing that I'm still going to be critical of is that he doesn't use his fastball as much as he should, and he doesn't command his fastball as well as he should. And it leaves him really relying on these secondary pitches. One reason why I was really excited about him when he got called up again early last year is from the progress he made with his curveball. And he made it a pitch that can steal strikes for him and also occasionally get swings and misses. And that might have been his best pitch in this outing. I think he got one of his strikeouts on that curveball, and he got other called strikes on it as well. That was encouraging. And that's one reason why there's a lot of excitement about him, is because of how deep his pitch mix is, with the fastball being maybe one of the weakest parts of it. The other ways that he can get people out, and even when he's not missing bats, getting soft contact. So the reason why he walked all these hitters, he struggled in a lot of aspects, but he limited the damage because his stuff is so nasty. It's so hard to barrel up. You just rarely see guys make contact that comes anywhere near being an extra base hit against him. I have to believe that's going to continue to be the case, and that continues to really raise his floor as a pitcher when he has that Sandy-like ability to induce weak contact with several different pitches. Against a different opponent, I just wonder how this would have looked. The Mets are a team that is a patient team that will not chase outside the zone as much as a lot of other opponents. This is the kind of performance that maybe looks a lot different if he's facing anybody else, if he's facing a weaker competition. So that's why I'm not going to overreact too much to the walk total or the fact that the outing was that short. It looked like a similar guy, for better and for worse. He looked similar to who I saw last year in the Marlins rotation.
Yeah. Also not overreacting. Like Eli said, this is a good lineup that he faced. McNeil is like one of the best plate presences in all of baseball, and you have other guys there as well that are just really good at taking pitches that aren't going to be close. So this guy has a deception, though. He has amazing stuff, but it's like Eli said, it's crazy too, because growing up in the minors, he did have, at least what I thought, is a little bit better fastball command, but now it just seems like it's gone, and almost a pitch that he's kind of given up on. He's now developing this curveball, as Eli said, as well. But now you're throwing more high effort pitches versus throwing your fastball, which should be his best weapon because he can reach 100 with it. So, I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting growth path for him, going from a guy who did have a good fastball and did have command over it, and now he just doesn't, and he doesn't seem very interested to get it back. So I don't know. Interesting case for Cabrera. Like I said, he's going to be throwing more high effort pitches. I would worry about him getting deeper into games more consistently as he goes along. The 6 walks doesn't look good. I would say, like Eli said, against maybe a not as good of a lineup, it would probably look a little different. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. And like his overall growth as a starter, I would have questions about at this point.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, we're only a week in, so I mean, I'd like to see them go through the rotation at least twice, maybe 3 times, before I would get final judgment. A lot of these guys are young guys, and I'm pretty sure the Butterflies also play a part in it. They're professionals, but they're also young guys who are going through this, and it's the first week, opening week. So I'd give them the benefit of the doubt. There's a lot of talent in that rotation, so. 2 or 3 starts in, if they're still having these struggles, then I start saying, we might have an issue with these guys. But I'm not too worried about Cabrera right now at this moment, honestly.
Yeah, Carver, you said that overreaction. That your growth his growth as a starter is already being questioned. But no, I don't know overreaction. It's one start,
I mean, he was the same way all last year, so it's not just going on.
He was one of their better starters aside from Sandy and Luzardo.
Different year, man. You go into it this year, and it's not. It doesn't always have to be a carryover.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that the role is a little bit,
and
focused more on what he is supposed to be in the rotation. So there's a little bit more pressure and stuff. So, I mean, again, let's get 2 or 3 starts in, and then we can start really dissecting where they're at.
No, you're right, but he needs to get back command of that fastball, man. Like,
definitely.
Then he's I feel a lot better, but. Right. Where he is right now, I'm not saying he can't be a starter for the rest of his career. I'm just saying it's questionable.
No, I got you.
You mentioned it because the Mets are one of the best, most patient teams in baseball, and this is also his first time ever starting a season in the big leagues too. So let's give him at least the first half of the season.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
The pressure is different.
It's a lot different than opening in Jupiter.
He's going to get the time, and he should get the time. I mean, absolutely.
And he faced arguably the best lineup in the National League. So.
Yes, Eli. Yes, I agree with that. You guys are right. I'm just saying, from what we saw last year and what we saw in his first start, yes, it's one start, but the main crux that's going against him is that he can't throw his fastball for strikes, and that's the problem.
But what was even more delish about it was that he walked 6 guys and he kept the Mets at 2 runs.
He did. So was he better out of the stretch? Does that come to your mind?
No, I don't think so.
No?
With him, that's not something that comes to my mind with him too much. Some pitchers, yes. Him, I don't think so. Maybe.
Before we head to the break, Isaac, he has to go off. He has to run off. He has to go see what Noah's doing. Isaac, let's get your prediction for the game, series MVP, and maybe anyone else who's around you, John or anybody there that wants to do a series prediction. Let them join in.
John, if you have a series prediction, let me know now. My series prediction would be that the Marlins actually take 2 out of 3. They win the first series of the year. Johnny Cueto gets the win tonight in his Marlins debut, and they'll win one of Sandy or Luzardo's starts. They win the series, and my series MVP, Jorge Soler. I think Soler hits a couple of home runs this series. And the windows and roof is open. Ooh. Balls will be flying. John, do you have one?
Yeah. The official win 2-1, but they'll lose tonight for sure.
Okay, John thinks the Marlins lose tonight, but they win tomorrow and Wednesday afternoon. So they
MVP.
beat Pablo. Who's your MVP of the series?
Cooper's gonna go nuts.
Garrett Cooper.
Yeah.
Ooh,
He's an Eli Truther. Garrett Cooper goes nuts. I'm glad nobody said Joey Wendell earlier. But yes.
Okay.
Those are our predictions.
That's our prediction. So we'll have a little break. We'll come back. We'll have lineups, talk about the Twins and Trevor Rogers, bullpen ace, question mark.
And I don't know if you guys want me to go over the injury report when you come back, or you guys got it.
Injury report. We can do a little injury report when we get back. right, we're back. I don't. This does not do anything with the Marlins, but I know people would. There's a big topic. Anthony Rendon just got 5 games suspended.
Wow.
League
Wow.
for his altercation. But you think
the
that's a
first.
lot? You think that's a lot? Not too much?
I think that's fine.
Sounds about right. I was a little surprised. I wasn't entirely sure whether he would actually get disciplined in that way. I don't know what the precedent was. I'm trying to just think of other examples of that happening.
The
but that
malice
sounds
at the
about right.
palace.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So, a good
That's
job by
crazy.
Mike Hill on that. If Mike Hill comes up with your
Ooh.
punishment, he's on the money.
All right. Let's go with our injury report from Mr. Isaac.
Yes, sir. Alrighty. Well, Stephen Okert apparently is one that's getting better the quickest. I think you should see him back in Miami in the next month or so. But he threw a live BP, I believe it was. He will throw one on Wednesday. Bender began playing catch. Tommy John recovery. Nick Enright threw a second live BP. Tommy Nance is throwing at 105 feet. Max Meyer at 75 feet. I actually wrote 175 to begin with, and everyone yelled at me. Max Meyer's throwing at 75 feet. He's also recovering from Tommy John surgery. And I think the biggest news of them all is that Sixto Sanchez threw his first live BP. It is the first time he's faced live hitters in a quote unquote game situation. It was only 15 pitches. I don't have any other reports on the velocity, the pitches he was throwing, but he did throw a live BP today, and he is scheduled to throw another one next week, from what I understand. And that's about it. And I guess the fresh new one is that Joey Wendell screwed up his oblique pretty bad today during batting practice on the field. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a roster move tomorrow regarding that. But yeah, those are the main ones that were given to me today.
Yeah. You have Nick Enright, Tommy Nance.
Nick Enright was obviously transferred to 60-day IL prior to the game. Mm-hmm. So, after that, then he's got his treatment, I believe, after, in June, from what I understand. So I think it's going to be a while for Nick Enright.
Oh, did we mention who got optioned and selected?
Yeah, Braxton Garrett. It was more of a move. Skips touched on that. It was just a situation where they needed a fresh arm just in case, in case Cueto only can go 4 or 5. They need someone in Lindgren that can give them some, healthy arms out of the pen.
Look at the picture.
And Braxton will go back to a starter schedule in AAA Jacksonville. What is this? Yes, so Braxton will go back to a starter schedule. They'll need him again this month, from what I understand as well. And Lindgren should be making his major league debut at some point this week. So that's 1 point for Isaac in the call-up contest.
You guys think that Sixto is going to actually make an impact this year?
No.
Oh,
ahead, Eli.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, to touch on Sixto real quick, I'm with Isaac on that. Very, very skeptical about him doing anything at the major league level. It's pleasantly surprising that he's facing live hitters. I do think you'll see him pitch at AAA this year for sure. The question is whether he actually performs at a level down there that you believe he's back to being anywhere close to what he used to be. And that's my big doubt. I don't think he's getting back to who he used to be after a couple of years with this shoulder thing. Some guys they're never able to regain it, and it's unfortunate. But a small step forward today, so I'll give him credit for that.
If Lindgren makes
had
his
electric
debut,
stuff, really, It's a shame what's happened to him.
if Lindgren makes his debut, he'll have that new MLB
Yeah,
debut.
Alex already pre-ordered that. He's getting ready to buy that. He's gonna drop the bag for a Jeff Lindgren MLB patch
A
card.
very nice guy. We spoke to him pregame, and he was, obviously, I don't need to say the hours, how excited he was for this opportunity. Thankful, very humble guy, and he's someone that you definitely root for.
Oh, and there you go, the highlights.
Yeah, depth arm.
Why are you showing that highlight, bro?
It's a depth arm. This is exactly what they expect out of him, is to get depth and length.
There we
and that's
go.
what he's doing. Isaac. He's not overpowering. You're not going to get a ton of strikeouts or a ton of amplified stuff from this arm, but you'll get innings, and that's exactly what the Marlins need for a fresh arm, like you guys said. So yeah, more ground ball stuff. Probably not going to strike a lot of guys out. Tall guy though, so he's got some deception to him. Yeah, so good for him. Glad to see him get his debut. He's been around for a while, so glad to see it happen for him.
I think Alex and I both saw him in the backfield. I think it was the day before full squad, and he looked pretty good. So maybe he could give the Marlins maybe an inning or two there of relief. If it's tonight with Cueto possibly going 4 or 5 if things don't look good for him, or maybe this week at some point.
What I remember very clearly about it is that he was drafted in 2019, and immediately after he debuted, he had this very long streak without allowing an earned run immediately coming out of the draft. They sent him to Jupiter pretty early on when it was still at high A. So almost immediately going to high A. And he made it overall in his career. Let's see what it was. It was 20 and 2/3 consecutive innings without allowing an earned run to start his minor league career. That was when he was working mostly as a long reliever. So that's what's been a little unusual about his journey is that immediately they were using him as a reliever. And since then, the last couple of seasons, it's been more so as a starter than it has been as a reliever. That being said, not a typical prospect, nobody that we should necessarily have high expectations for. You just hope to find some sort of role for him as he joins. He's already the 5th guy from that Marlins draft class to make it to the majors.
Yeah, not to be that guy, but not to be that guy, but Lindgren probably will get DFA'd very shortly, and he'll go right back to Jacksonville because obviously I think we're waiting for the arms of like Josh Simpson. Probably missing a couple other bigger name relievers. Brian Hoeing, I'm kind of surprised they didn't call up Hoeing in this situation after a very nice spring, but
don't say his name 3 times.
Recently, he started what 2 days ago, so it kind of makes sense there why they would bring up Lindgren, but just a nice arm to have out there, just a depth piece to be honest.
Before we get to lineups, I wanted to talk to you guys about the first base position. Just between Coop and Yuli Gurriel, do you guys have a favorite between the two, or do you like the way that they're doing about it now with it seems like maybe each guy is getting a majority of the reps?
Cooper's looked good. There's no other way to say. He's looked good defensively. He had a very nice defensive series. Not known for his defense at all, but looked good. Looked good on both ends, offense and defense. Yuli, obviously, I think he only played 2 games. Didn't do much. On Friday, he got a hit. After that, he really didn't do too much more. Spring training showed that he was pretty good defensively still. So I guess as the season progresses, he'll definitely be someone to keep an eye out on. But I like how they're doing it. Skip said that he wants to continue constructing the lineup with both Coop and Yuli at the same time, especially since he told me, and I think this is verbatim, I don't lose anything with Yuli in the lineup. So, that's a nice fit there. Keep in mind, Yuli's kind of turned more into a contact hitter throughout these last couple of years, especially with, he's won the batting title. He still hits for power, but just not as much as he used to earlier in his career. And then with Coop, he's looked good. There's no other way to say it. He's on an expiring deal. He's definitely playing for something. You could see it. And I like how they're doing it. No complaints from me.
I'm with you. I think they're doing the right platooning with the two of them. Look, I'm Cuban, so I'm always going to pull for Yuli because we're Cuban. But I love Cooper. I love his hustle. With him, it's just, is he going to get hurt or is he going to stay healthy? I've never doubted the talent. The guy's been talented since he was with the Yankees. It's always been a health issue, and it's not his fault. It's not like I broke a pinky or I stubbed a toe. No, he's had serious injuries that require surgery, months of rehab, and things have happened on the field to him. So he's had a lot of freaky stuff. So I'm always pulling for Cooper, and I feel bad when the season is, he's red hot, and all of a sudden he's injured, he's out for the year. So I hope that he has an awesome year and he gets re-signed. But again, I pull for Yuli because it's a Cuban thing, We kind of pull for our own a little bit. So, but I do like the platooning. I think that's really cool. You have DH also, which I'm sure they're going to platoon everybody through there, which is a blessing to have in the National League now. So that's going to help out a lot, get these guys some at-bats, especially if Garcia gets his role reduced where, he's done performing and, we need to figure out something else. I think that there's a nice spot to get both at-bats in there. But, man, Yuli is somebody that I'm not worried about either. He's a veteran, and he's a proven hitter. So I'm not worried about Yuli. Yeah.
I think most of our listeners know that I'm kind of on the other side of that. I am worried that it's going to be more the same from last year because that's why he's available this late into the year. because there's concern that now entering his age 39 season that he's not going to regain whatever he used to have, at least in terms of extra base hit potential. You see that he's going to continue to put his bat on the ball. He's going to be able to get his fair share of singles. And what we've seen defensively, going back to spring training, definitely more good than bad when it comes to that. He's somebody that does make sense as somewhat of a defensive replacement late in the game, even on days when he's not starting for Cooper. I just don't think the slugging is going to be there. I hope to see it at some point. And understanding the great career he's had, I understand why they signed him. The upside is pretty high. If he just gets back to being who he was in 2021, when he was a great everyday player for the Astros, then obviously that's a tremendous bargain. I'm going to doubt it until I actually see it more onto the field. In the meantime, they definitely need him because this offense was not producing runs during that first series. They need somebody like him coming through in situations where there are runners on base. I don't think it's too much to ask for a timely single in some of those situations moving forward. We'll see how it plays out. So the plan does seem to be that he's going to be in the lineup a couple times a week. Moving forward, he's going to get his opportunities to show that there's something left in the tank. For the time being, I just wonder about the power aspect of it.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately age will permeate for this in terms of this player. I mean, it sucks to say that, but I think the age will permeate and he'll continue to show his age, unfortunately. But yeah, like I said, it was a kind of a low risk signing. I mean, they needed a guy to back up at first base. If he can get back to some modicum of what he was, then you got a great deal. And if he doesn't, then well, you know, it is what it is. But
he
hopefully
won't be
he
here
gets
long.
back to some level of what he was. But they have depthier players too that can back up if he doesn't. But I got to go for now. I'll give you a prediction before I go because I know you guys are about to get to mine. I think the two of you guys, John and Isaac, both said the Marlins will win. I will say the Marlins will lose this series, 1-2, and I'll pick the easy guy to pick, I guess, from the Twins is Byron Buxton for MVP. He's been crazy so far. So yeah, I just don't see a lot in Cueto, unfortunately, as another older guy, I should say. I think Pablo comes back and shoves in his game as well, and I think the Marlins salvage the other one. So yeah, 2-1 Twins with Buxton. But there you go, and I'll talk to you guys again next series.
All right, heard from Alex. Let's go to some lineups. Let's check out the lineups for the Twins and the Marlins. The Marlins now had to revamp their lineup just a little bit with Joey Wendell out and then putting Birdie in his place at shortstop. I think this is probably one of the fun lineups you see. The Marlins are going to have to play against with the Twins. You have guys like Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton, former feature Marlin, Max Kepler, Jose Miranda, Joey Gallo, who's looking to bounce back, Christian Vasquez, who just played in Lone Depot Park. Or did he? I don't.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Okay, yeah. And yeah, it's a fun team there with the Twins and Kevin's favorite player, Michael A. Taylor. Kevin, what do you see there between those lineups, between the Marlins and the Twins?
It's a really good lineup from top to bottom. We just saw the Mets, and it doesn't get any easier with the Twins. I do like what they have. I guess the lower portion of the lineup is where you could kind of attack more if you're a Marlins pitcher. But yeah, I mean, you have Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton, just back to back. Max Kepler, who didn't have the strongest year last year, but looked pretty good. Joey Gallo, don't underestimate him. He had a 2-homer game on Sunday, 3 hits. We had a double in there too, so he's looked pretty good. Michael A. Taylor could get something going if with his speed, he could get into some nice infield hits. Christian Vasquez, we saw what he did in the WBC. He looked good. So this is a very good Twins lineup. I really can't. You can't go into this saying that Miami will easily take 2 out of 3, and if they do, that would be a very impressive 2 out of 3. They're technically the hottest team in baseball right now at 3-0. I know it's against Kansas City, but it's still a really good lineup when you look at it. And this team goes up against the top dogs. They really go up and they put up a good fight.
Yeah, I agree 100%. If the Marlins come out of this series with 1 win, it'll be great. I think it'll be the middle game or tomorrow's game. Tonight, I'm not too sure. I'm 50-50. I think it's going to go to the Twins. The lineup, the Twins, they have an excellent lineup, and their pitching has been solid in spring and stuff. So they're going to be a tough team to beat in the American League this year. But there's a lot of teams on paper that look good, and then they fizzle out. So Let's see how the season goes. The Marlins on paper look great, and that's on paper only. When you start looking at some of the players individually, they're like, "Oh, I like this guy, I like that guy," but then you get on the field and they don't score runs when you put them together. But there's always standouts in a lot of these teams. So.
Yeah, and the Twins.
This is
they
the
have
best.
plenty of
This is the
standouts.
best time of year to do this lineup segment because it's so early in the year that nobody is really qualified for these StatCast leaderboards where
Yeah.
it colors you red when you're doing great and blue when you're doing poorly. We remember from really the entire second half of last year, the contrast between the Marlins and whoever they were playing, where it was all washed in blue on the Marlins side and the opposite, relatively speaking, for whoever they were playing. At this stage, it's only that sprint speed that guys have had enough competitive runs for their sprint speed to be measured. But everything else, there's to this point in the season, the samples are still so small. Our imagination can take us in so many different directions.
Yeah, and just looking at everything here, and also the pitching matchup, we could probably go into the pitching matchup this entire series since we're covering all that. For today, it's Tyler Miley against Johnny Cueto. Then we're going to have Kenta Maeda against Sandy. And then for Wednesday, the game that if you had to see one game, I would recommend this one, Jesus Luzardo versus the returning Pablo Lopez. Kevin, which pitching matchup do you like the most? And I have to admit, all these pitching matchups have their own unique storylines and their own unique just matchups between both pitchers.
It's a good question because you have Sandy in the middle game, which is going to be a fun matchup. I believe he's going up against Kenta Maeda. Yeah. And then you have that final game where it's Pablo. Pablo makes his long-awaited return to Lone Depot Park and will go up against his Venezuelan teammate or former teammate, WBC teammate, Jesus Luzardo. So I'm going to go with that one just because the storyline sounds it's a better storyline. But, it's Sandy's beach is back, so that's going to be packed out a little bit there. And I kind of want to talk about tonight's matchup. Tonight's matchup may be the weakest pitching matchup, but Cueto's very familiar with the Twins. I mean, obviously last year playing in the same division as them with the White Sox, he was all right. He wasn't that good. Now, keep in mind, Cueto kind of that ground ball inning eating pitcher just went 2-1 against them. So I guess that means anything. 4.01 ERA and in 24.2 innings pitched. So he has had some success against this team. But looking at the other matchups, I mean, Sandy, I think he'll carve this lineup up. He did it to the Dodgers last year when they were at their highest. He did it. They don't look too good against the Mets, but we saw kind of what Sandy did last year. Started off on kind of on the wrong foot, kind of got improved as the year went on, obviously, and then finally, Jesus Luzardo had a pretty nice outing, but kind of had some control issues there. So. We'll see. And then Pablo, I think, is just going to have a great outing. It's Pablo Lopez. He was really good against Kansas. I believe he struck out 8th and allowed a run, only 2 hits, if I'm memorizing the stat correctly and the final line. But it's going to be some fun pitching matchups. And, although Lone Depot won't be packed, I highly suggest you all to go out there and watch because the Twins are a fun team, although in a really bad division.
Yeah. What do you think the score is going to be tonight?
Tonight, I could see it being a little higher, kind of more.
That is a great transition because we have just about 20 minutes until first pitch, and on our Instagram account, we're giving away tickets to Sandy Day tomorrow, the Tuesday game, and we're going to determine the winner based on who in the comments of our Instagram page has the correct score prediction for tonight. So there are a lot of submissions in there, overwhelmingly so. People think the Marlins are going to win tonight. A lot of optimism, surprisingly, despite how Cueto looked in spring training and during the WBC. This is just one last opportunity to plug this. This is on our Instagram account at Fish Stripes, where we're proud to have more than 2,000 followers over there. So there's still time to enter before first pitch by following our partners at La Pop. They're on IG as well, and then leaving a comment with your score prediction. For me, it's complicated with Cueto because historically he has been really bad in spring training, even during seasons when things go well for him, once the real games count. He's somebody that has that clear separation between experimenting during the exhibition games and then kind of flipping a switch once the real action begins. All things I'm going to say that I expect him to be all right tonight. And yeah, I don't think it's going to be a particularly lopsided game, despite kind of some of the red flags surrounding him. And with Tyler Mahle, I mean, he's somebody that probably gets more overlooked than he should be. The Twins gave up quite a bit to trade for him at the deadline last year. And that's because he is somebody that I think is a clearly above average starting pitcher, even if he doesn't get the recognition for it. Just in 2021, he had 210 strikeouts in 180 innings. And even last year, which was somewhat of a down year for him, the only thing was he had an injury popped up pretty soon after he got traded to the Twins. But now that he's healthy again, he's probably the superior pitcher in this matchup between him and Cueto for a Twins lineup that, as Kevin mentioned, this is a really dangerous Twins lineup with several guys in there that have as much power as anybody. So I would expect the Twins to win tonight. And then the question is, what happens those other two games?
Yeah. And I want to say this is where this is something we're talking about before the stream. Tyler Mahle, the day he got traded, it was in Lone Depot Park. So
it's a revenge game.
Yeah, kind of revenge Lone Depot, I guess.
I think this is just a perfect time now to segue to prediction time. I think we have enough time for all of us to go in detail with our thoughts for this series. So without further ado, Eli, let's play it.
This is prediction time.
It's time.
So prediction time for those of you who may not be new. We will be telling you who wins the series, how many games the Marlins will win. So 1 and 2. If you go to last one, here are the results for that for Minnesota and our super subscribers there. So everything there, you tell us your MVP of the series. Could be either a pitcher or hitter from either team. And you can see here there is a lot of love for Miami in the MVP department. Kevin, give us who you think will win this series and your MVP.
Well, let me wait. Are we doing the TikTok thing?
Sure. Just give me a moment.
I
Before that, I wanted to actually show the leaderboard that is now updated for where we are in the current season. If I did save that somewhere right here. Yeah, 7 of us in total, including your beautiful host, picked up some prediction points from that first series. So as it shows here, we combined the staffers and our super subscribers. We highly encourage people to super subscribe to us for just $2.99 a month so they can participate in prediction time every single series, and so that they can compare themselves between us and them throughout the entire season. It's going to be a hyper competitive race throughout this entire season. And you can find all the information for that right on our Twitter profile with that subscribe button in the corner. All you got to do is press
finish
that.
first. You will get a prize. You will not be going home empty-handed if you do happen to beat me, the winner of last season's prediction time. So, Kevin, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I think I am. So 3 games set. All right, we have time. I could talk as much as
detail. Let's go, Kevin.
Yeah, so I think they'll win tonight. I have a good feeling about tonight. I think this offense is just finally, after struggling to score, get runners in there, I think they'll do it. I think they'll also win tomorrow. You can't doubt Sandy Alcantara. And then finally, I think they lose to start against Pablo. It's not Luzardo having a rough start. I think Pablo's just going to carve up this lineup, and especially since he knows them very, very well, I think that'll benefit him. And series MVP, I'm gonna stick with Luis Ariz, although Sandy Alcantara is a very tempting pick.
Yeah. All right, Eli.
Me, I just have I have a hard time believing that this Marlins team is going to lose a series and drop to 2-5 or to 1-6 in this all-important year. Even as early as there should be some sense of urgency happening right here. I feel pretty confident in them winning the series 2 games out of 3, with most likely losing tonight's opener. But I trust in Sandy year after year. Even last year, there were some inconsistencies with his control early on. And then as it played out, he put those things to bed. He continues to find ways to stay at the top of his game, to make adjustments very, very quickly. I think he'll be just fine in this series. And not to root against Pablo, but I think the Marlins, I feel even higher about Luzardo than I do about Pablo. And that should be a really competitive game. Kind of maybe some shades of, I don't know if you guys remember this, but Pablo against Corbin Burns early on last year at Lowe Depot Park, where both of them went very deep into the game. And Pablo may have set his career high in strikeout. It was a very impressive game. Tied it. Yeah. One of his many 9 strikeout games.
Yeah.
That was a very
was that the
memorable
one he got it in order?
No, that was Atlanta.
That's Atlanta. Okay.
That was one of his many other 9 strikeout games. So I think we're going to get a great show in that series finale. But I will once again ride with Jesus Luzardo as my MVP pick. He almost won series MVP honors in this previous series. And I think he'll just barely outpitch Pablo in that series finale and accumulate enough win probability added to swing that deserving distinction in his name.
All right. Angel, your series MVP and prediction.
Yep. Again, I'm 50-50 on tonight's game. I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm saying somewhere about maybe 6-3, 6-4 final score. I don't think that Cueto's going to get the win or the loss. I think he's going to go undecided. I think it's going to add up to what the bullpen can do. As far as tomorrow's game, I think Sandy's going to come out and he's going to be unstoppable. I mean, that dude, when you need him to go out there and be your stop. He's one of the best Cy Young winners. So then the next game, I really think Luzardo, Jesus is going to be really good, but Pablo is going to come out and be lights out, and I think it'll be like a 2-1 or maybe 1-0 game. It's going to be not fun to see that that goose egg back up there if it's 1-0, but Pablo looks great. Sandy, I think, is going to win the second game, and again, the first game I think is going to be undecided. The MVP overall hitting wise, I want to say it's going to be either between Cooper or Jazz. If I could maybe an option or two, I think those probably be your MVPs hitting wise. Pitching wise, man, Sandy. I'm going to pull for him as if there's an MVP pitcher. But hitting wise, I think Cooper is going to be red hot this series. So,
all right. Let me see for myself here. I think for the Marlins, to get me to pick them, I think they have to at least prove that they can win a series. And until then, even though it's only 4 games and only 1 series in, I'm going to go the Twins take the series 2-1. I think Miami loses to the game, Johnny Cueto game today. They win Sandy, and then Pablo, I think, is just going to shove against the Marlins. I think he might beat his career high in strikeouts. I predict 10 strikeouts for Pablo in that game against Jesus Luzardo on Wednesday. And for my MVP, let's go Pablo. Why not? Let's see. I think Pablo's going to come back out. Miami show that he's still a top pitcher, that they shouldn't have traded him. But I think he's gonna shove that game and really strike out a couple people twice, or maybe even 3 times. But that's my prediction: Minnesota 2-1 and Pablo Lopez MVP.
Yeah, Angel, I made you settle on one MVP for the purposes of our prediction time. I made you settle with Garrett Cooper.
I'm going with Cooper.
Good.
That could work.
Yeah.
All right. So make sure we have 10 more minutes till game time. So if you're watching it, go get your popcorn ready. It's going to be a fun series. John Cueto's debut. Tomorrow you're going to have Sandy and Pablo Lopez coming back to LDP. If you have to go to one game, please go to that Wednesday game. Go see Pablo. Give him a hug. Kiss him on his head. Go see that game there. 1:10 start, so she'll be early. Kev's skipping school for that one for sure.
No, I'm not.
And for everyone who left the stream, I had a press box report for Alex, Isaac, John, Lewis, for all those people, for myself, Daniel, Kevin, Eli, Angel. Before I let you go, Angel, where could the people find you?
Very simple. My name, angelespino.com. You can find all my work right there. I keep it simple. Guys, thank you so much for having me on your show, and I look forward to interacting with you guys more in the future. So keep it tight, keep it right, and let's go fish.
I could have said it better myself. Let's go fish.